Hi, I'm Aaron Raw, and I took a lift at the Valley.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith in unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you after opening the Ark of the Covenant, this is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, and I was told I was so strong that I don't do push-ups, I push the earth back. Joining me as usual is a team that once broke the law, and they still haven't put it back together. Now, we have Shark Week, but sharks celebrate a week for her, Nancy.
Oh, absolutely. And cougars, too.
And she's so bright that the sun was deemed an amateur, Christina.
Yep.
And she has a bear carpet in her house. The bear's not dead, it's just afraid to move, Kirsten.
Damn straight. That's what Haskell did to the one that tore off the wall of the barn.
Uh-oh. Ladies, welcome back.
Good to be back. It's been a nice week.
I hope you had a great week.
Yeah.
Hope you had a great week.
Yeah.
So this week we're going to be talking to a couple of podcasters, Erik and Matthew, from a show called Odd Atheist Friends.
Oh.
So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I bet.
But first, let's do a little bit of chit-chat, and boy, do we have a lot to go through.
A little bit?
Oh, God, we have a lot to go through. Let's start. So you guys heard that the Colorado Supreme Court, in a 7-2 ruled in favor of the baker Jack Phillips, who cited his Christian's belief for refusing to bake for a gay couple.
That's right, but it's not as bad as it seems.
Apparently the ruling is apparently a narrow one, but I can't help but think there are going to be some repercussions about this right away, because the next day there's a story that came out of Tennessee that a store owner put a sign in his shop saying no gays allowed.
Well, the ruling expressly discusses the fact that everyone should treat customers, or everyone should be treated with respect and equally. So there are no barriers to anyone filing a lawsuit either through the ACLU or through their own lawyer for discrimination. There was nothing that the Supreme Court said that stopped anyone from suing when a legitimate discrimination event occurs, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. But, it's one of those things that there might not be some legal repercussions about this, but I think there's going to be some societal ones, and I think we're seeing that already. Maybe we've opened a Pandora's box here by doing this.
Well, maybe yes, maybe no. I think what the Supreme Court was saying was that in this particular case, I was going to say tribunal, but that's not quite the word. But the ones who initially ruled on the case, they said that they were hostile to the defendants, and so on that basis, it was 7-2. But actually, they aligned themselves in different ways for other lawsuits to come. So basically what they're saying is you guys sort it out at the local level, but if something rises to the federal level, we're ready to hear it.
Yeah.
But still, it's a disappointment.
It is a disappointment.
But
it's one of those...
it was just because of what they ruled to be the hostility in that particular case that ruined it for.
And what I hate about something like this is it's one of those situations that if you give them an inch, they will try to plunge in and open it and take a foot, right?
But I think there'll be pushback if they really try to put up. I think there was a sign put up someplace that said we don't serve gays here.
Yeah, in Tennessee.
And so that's not going to last long.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you guys hear that Mariano Rajoy has been ousted as Prime Minister of Spain? He's been replaced by the socialist Pedro Sanchez by losing a confidence vote. In Spanish parliamentary elections, that's what happened. As soon as you lose a confidence vote, that's it, you're ousted and you're replaced right away. His anti-austerity, there's been a lot of anti-austerity sentiments in Spain. They've had harsh economic times in the past couple of years. And the great news is the guy's he's actually an atheist.
Yeah, I saw that.
I know, it's pretty amazing. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and supposedly from the something that I just skimmed, maybe you read it a little in more depth, but he's also put quite a number of women in his
I didn't hear
cabinet.
about that yet.
Yeah.
I'll have to follow that. Okay, and in a moment of incredible stupidity, the Orange Menace, Donald Trump, had a conversation with our Prime Minister. Now, this last week we talked about the tariffs on steel and aluminum, and our Prime Minister basically called and said, "Okay, what is the purpose of this, and why are you doing this to us?" And the president referred to some obscure clause saying that he is supposed to be imposing tariffs on countries that represent a threat to national security. And our Prime Minister basically countered with, well, this is Canada. Well, we've been allies forever. What makes you think that we are a threat to national security? And Trump, in his incredible orange starburst wisdom, basically said, didn't you guys burn the White House in 1812?
Well, we should clarify, he didn't actually say in 1812. He's just not that intelligent. He said, didn't you burn down our White House?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other people had to be, is he talking about 1812?
Now, okay, for I don't think we have any Trump listeners that listen to this show, but let's clarify here. Yes, the White House did get burned down, and that's why it's actually the White House now, because it didn't actually used to be white. But that 1812, Canada was not Canada yet. Canada was formed in 1867, so we were still a British colony. So the British, technically the British, burned down the White House.
I know. Do you think there's an off chance that it was his horrible sense of humor? That he's so tone deaf to everything, but that was just the preliminary to going to the G7 and then pissing everybody off at the same time. Why piss off one guy on the phone when you can do it in person?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was a sense of humor. I think that basically he just wanted to put a tariff.
Yeah.
And basically when they're asking him for an excuse, he just popped that out of his hat. Because that's the only possible reason he can even come up with something that's stupid.
Yeah, Congress there's a Corker supposedly is trying to initiate a bill to give Congress more authority, over tariffs. But there's so many of the Republicans are cowering in the corner. I doubt whether it'll ever get to the floor. Who knows? So
you may face palm now. Let's get some good news here. Did you guys hear that Ireland overturned the abortion ban? Mm-hmm. Yeah. In a vote, 66.4% versus 33.6%, the abortion was only allowed when the woman's life was actually at risk. Not even rape or incest would allow a woman to have abortion before that. The Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, basically said it was an historic day for Ireland. Now, what I didn't know is the 8th Amendment in the Constitution was actually installed in around 1983 after a visit from John Paul II. It was put in the Constitution giving equal rights to life for mother and unborn child. Right. So now they've overturned that. So.
Oh, good. Congratulations to Ireland.
Yeah, exactly. Here's some other good news. Did you guys hear that NASA's Curiosity has found organic matter on Mars?
I saw a little something, but you're the tech science guy.
Oh
so
God,
you're up on all of that.
I'm not much of the tech science guy, but they found organic matter. It suggests it was once home to life. And now it's become a bit official. And that discovery should propel us to look for conclusive evidence of alien life. They found methane and unexpected organic molecules preserved in the soil. Curiosity was in the Gale crater, and which is thought of that the crater itself was an ancient lake. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I got to go back to bad news here.
It was so
well.
It was nice while it lasted.
Yeah, that was too fast to go down and up the roller coaster. I'm sorry. I'll try to pull myself together. Okay, here we go.
I cannot believe they elected Doug Ford in Ontario. They elected Doug Ford in Ontario. Let me say that again. Mini Trump. This is beyond me. This is the guy This is a guy whose brother was a drug addict and was trying to cover for him. And this is a guy who thought that, as a provincial premier, he's going to shut down the CBC, which is a federal thing. This guy is such an idiot to the biggest, and yet 50% of all the voters didn't vote for the quote, progressive conservatives. That's a joke. 41% of the vote went for them. 34% went for the NDP, and 19% went for the Liberals, and 5% to the Green. So now we're ending up with a majority Conservative in Ontario.
And I don't know what the right, he wasn't, I think he received a special blessing from the evangelical church.
Yeah, of course.
From the Palace of Prayer. He got the official blessing from the church there, which has been embroiled in various scandals here and there, and it's like, how close to Trump, do you want to get here, Doug?
Yeah,
same, the same connections.
Yeah, I mean, right away the evangelicals, and right away he basically said God delivered us a victory and stuff like that. This is not going to end well. So I guess that I like to think of Canadians a bit better than Americans, but I guess we just proved that we're not.
Well, we'll see where we all are in a year.
Yeah,
or
we'll see.
The people in Ontario, will figure out whether or not they did a good thing or a bad thing to themselves.
At least it's not the Prime Minister, right?
Yeah.
Did you hear that Anthony Bourdain is dead?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
kind of young
sad.
too, 61.
61.
Yeah, apparently hung himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
just.
Of course,
I've been listening to the news about that, since yesterday, and the praise that he got, and then the extreme sadness of someone who had been able to achieve so much and yet felt that it was somehow not enough.
Yeah.
For him to be able to continue his life with his thoughts and his emotions. It's very sad.
I never would have picked the man to be suicidal in that sense.
But you can't pick.
No, you can't.
You can't pick any at this point. People are very good at covering, their feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, exactly.
But he was. Did you ever watch any of his?
I did watch some of his shows. I thought he had a very interesting touch and an interesting way of connecting with people.
Yeah.
And he had a pretty interesting career. He was one of the best known chefs in the world.
Yeah.
For that sense, in that sense, and his message was always of, don't stay at home, go out there and visit the world. And I think that was a worthwhile message. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he will be missed.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was a Renaissance man in many ways.
In that sense, yeah.
He had so many different talents, and I, as you were saying, I think he encouraged a lot of people and motivated them, to go beyond their comfort zone and their boundaries and try new things and talk to people that were different, to understand that actually at the core we're all the same. Mm-hmm. So. He was from what I understand, a strong advocate for the Me Too and for women.
Yeah,
so he did a lot of good.
Good stuff. Oh, rest in peace, Anthony.
Very sad.
And last but not least, have you been following the G7?
Sort of. Because it just.
Well,
or the G6 plus one.
The G6 plus one, maybe. Now, today, as we're recording this, Trump is on his way to do that summit, that North Korean summit thing.
Yeah.
But yesterday, basically, there was an article saying he arrived late, he left early, he insulted the Prime Minister. This is in Charlevoix, Quebec. And on top of that, he basically proposed that we should bring Russia back into the G7, which would make it a G8.
Yeah, I mean, he did a maximum amount of damage in a minimum amount of time.
It's pretty impressive.
He could get in like the bull in the china shop and just, everybody is gasping in his wake.
It's pretty impressive that the man can do that in so little amount of time.
Interesting, and this is such trivia. But I don't think that I don't know whether or not you've noticed or not, but whenever there's a group shot or whenever there's a camera, he gets himself in place, and his orangeness is there with just a regular look on his face, and the minute he's ready, his whole expression, he gets this absolutely phony smile on. And it's just, it's
camera's on.
No, it's like a mask, overcomes him, and suddenly, da-da, he's the belle of the ball, and it's fascinating to watch because the smile is like rigor mortis. It's not a real, I'm happy to be here. It's, my teeth are glittering, so you must be happy to see me.
Of course, Canada right away rejected the bid. So I guess the Prime Minister and Trump are kind of locking horns a bit on this. Russia was kicked out when they attacked Crimea. Remember that? Yeah. And, there's a lot of Americans that say that, he's essentially a Russian puppet. Whenever I hear that, those accusations, I'll be the first one to say, I don't know. He could be, but when you hear something like that, him happening to just pop in, we should just bring Russia back in. Why? Because, it's like, okay, you're just giving weight to all these people that say you're a Russian puppet. You're just giving weight to all of them now.
We're in the midst of living history as it unfolds, and so there are a lot of mysteries and there are a lot of things that will eventually be revealed. And I think in our lifetime, within the next 4, 5, 6 years, all of this, look at the power of these investigative journalists. They have uncovered so much, and once Mueller gives his report and things go from there, I think we'll learn what the connections were and how how damaging they were, how productive they were. So we're sort of 3/4 of the way through our book. We gotta wait. There's still several more chapters to go.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies. Now, my dear Nancy, it's time for your top 10. You ready for that?
It is, and we got sort of a special one today by request from our glorious host, Mr. Kevin. Because,
by request,
yeah. So I think it'll be fun. Listeners, you may remember that last week we talked about a televangelist and mega church owned, I don't know whether it's an owner, but mega church pastor named Jesse Duplantis. And he's the guy that said, I need a $54 million plane, even though he had 4 of them. And so we got to wondering, is he typical? What is behind this kind of scam? Where does this guy come from? Who else is involved in something like this? And when I looked Jesse up, his net worth is $40 million. And where does that $40 million come from? Some of it comes from the parishioners, but some of it comes from other ways of making scam money. And so we're going to investigate. We're going to explore a little of that today because it's really fascinating how these people come to power, maintain the power, and even when there are scandals, still manage to eke out the living with maybe a little less millions, but they still do fairly well.
$40 million. He's obviously desperate to pay his bills, right? He's got no money.
Yeah, poor guy, Poor
guy.
Yeah, and that's not the most amount of money that pastors can make. So anyway,
I think I'm going to be sick of this list.
Starting from the beginning. Well, maybe not from the beginning, but most of these pastors are part of a movement called the Prosperity Gospel, which started in many ways in the 50s, but actually did go back earlier than that, depending on what sources that you use. But generally, these guys are part of the Prosperity Gospel, which is worth an investigation that we should do sometime in the future, because it goes into politics and religion and con artists. It just covers a wide range. So anyone who's not familiar with the term prosperity gospel, you might read a book, an interesting one called Blessed, Blessed. It could be Blessed or Blessed, by a lady whose last name is Bowler, Bowler. She has the best and most comprehensive Canadian
really?
who eventually ended up in the States. But anyone who's interested, please read Blessed by, I think it's Catherine Bowler.
Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with the philosophy of the gospel ministries, the prosperity gospel ministries, think about it this way: you give money to the church, and somehow it's going to come back tenfold to you.
That's right.
That's essentially what they're saying.
That's exactly and how it came to be, and why people still buy into it. So one of the things I thought we'd do before talking about the actual pastors who are the televangelists is to figure out, where does all their money come from? Some of it does come from donations, but there are a lot of things that these pastors do sort of under the radar that you don't realize, that add to that total of the 40 million, 50 million, 100 million, whatever it is that they make. One of the things that they make money at is multi-level marketing.
Oh,
believe it
great.
or not, they're
The pastor and Amway dealers.
Yeah. But they don't sell a product, they sell a dream, like all good con artists do. So if there's a minister who's involved somewhere in multi-level marketing, be aware that money's going into his pocket, even though you might want the product. You're caught up in a scam that way. They also sell a lot of books. They sell them in their churches and the mega churches, but they're also available online. So you're also contributing to putting money in their pocket, by their books. They put out DVDs. A lot of people, through a lot of their TV programs, radio programs, they sell an awful lot of DVDs. Conferences, they charge a lot of money for people to attend their conferences. They have a Christian speaking circuit, so a lot of them go on the tour, and they exchange money from one church to the other.
They should lose a lot of money in that.
Yeah, to do that. And then they also actually feed off their own flock, because they get the congregation to donate and redonate for whatever causes that they have. And they also will own a business that the church is invested in, like counseling, gyms, production films, computer counseling, computer consulting. So there's a lot of things, business coaching services, a lot of those they're involved in, and they get a special advantage because of the taxes that they don't have to pay. Exactly what the interplay is between some of these marketing products and taxes, I'm not quite aware of, but I know they get a pretty good break. If they can't do all of these things, they also will have a "let's honor our pastor" scam, where within the church they want the people who are on the inner ring will say they'll figure out what the pastor would like for his birthday or for special occasion, and everybody has to have a fundraiser to provide him with additional perks, even though he's already taken everything he can. There's always a little more in your wallet that he figures he could get. That and high pressure offerings, and then building a new church. There's a lot of money that can disappear when you build a new church, because you can siphon a lot of cash into property that way. And of course, excessive wages, because he feels he's worth more, and a lot of the perks, the cars, the airplanes like Jesse Duplantis and things like that. So it's not just through that a donation, but then there's also the nepotism and tithing, which I understand there's no such thing in the Bible in terms of tithing.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know, when I think tithing, the first one that comes to mind is the Mormons. The Mormons tithe a lot. I mean, it's like
but my understanding,
mandatory for them.
Yeah, but the New Testament church didn't tithe. It sort of came out of that. We should look that up. It came out of some interpretations, but there isn't any direct orders or what do you call it, or not orders, but biblical prophecies or anything like that.
There's no commandment that forces you to tithe.
So those are some of the things that contribute to the scam. So you got to watch out. Even if there's a book that you like that some minister has written, try to get it in the library so you don't, or borrow it from somebody so you don't end up having to contribute or donate yourself. Then the other thing that I thought was fascinating is why parishioners still stand by their pastor once he's outed, whether it's for a sexual scandal or for a money scandal. You still have parishioners that hold on really tight, and you have them say things like, I came back to the church even more now because the word is more powerful.
Yeah.
And they really believe that because they've placed what some call a spiritual firewall around the pastor, and then in their own mind that firewall remains even though a pastor's extramarital or financial related scam is exposed. But they cannot give up the belief that they found this pastor so spiritually enlightening that all of a sudden he's fallen from grace. They can't.
It's the same mentality that forces evangelicals to say Trump is chosen by God somehow.
Yeah.
Despite all his flaws, and they say, well, King David also had flaws and stuff like that. It's complete nonsense.
Yeah, and some of them will stand by their pastors because they feel that they're being targeted. It's the Christian discrimination, and so they feel as though, no, all these things are made up, they're blowing it up, and so they refuse. So even though you have pastors who are exposed, they can still come back and fleece their flock again.
Oh, yes.
Because they've got this firewall of spiritual protection around them. So one of the quotes is, there are people who we trust with our lives every day, like doctors who do all sorts of things, but we don't question them. This is our spiritual medicine. We come here to get what we need, and then we leave. And they're still willing to take the money out of their pockets and do it. It's amazing.
Astounding.
For a lot of people, the last quote, it'll take catching the guy in the act. He runs off with church money, he goes to jail, he's caught on film with a prostitute, and even then, there are some so fundamentally misinformed about concepts of forgiveness and judgment that they blindly go on supporting him. So these guys know that somewhere there may be a second chance, and they'll do everything they can to grab on it.
Exactly.
Okay, so now that we have a little of that background, here are 15 Christian leaders.
A top 15.
That make more money getting out of bed than you're going to make all year long. Now we get down to
that's depressing.
That is very depressing.
Here we go. Do we know John Hagee? Is that name a familiar
Yeah,
name?
that name is a bit familiar.
He's sort of an honorable mention. He's worth $5 million.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Small potatoes.
He's the poor guy of the group. And it's sort of like the pauper of the televangelist world. So he goes, on the air, a televangelist. He's got a pretty good following, not as good as everybody else. Then other honorable mention is a guy named Eddie Long. He's got 15. He's between 5 and 15 mil. Do you know Eddie Long?
No, I'm afraid I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay. He has been divorced twice, investigated for domestic abuse, investigated for tax fraud, sued over a Ponzi scheme. You know, the regular things that television, just the regular ordinary days.
He's quite a pillar of the society.
Yeah. He's 62 years old, and he's been in the ministry for quite a long time, and he's got a 25,000 member church, believe it or not. Do we know Randy and Paula White? They're on TV. They've got 10 mil. And they're one of the richest preaching couples. But they got a divorce, but they still keep the ministry together. And he calls himself a bishop, which is wonderful. A bishop.
A bishop.
Anyway, he is the pastor and bishop and founder of the Kirsten Renee Foundation. And Paula alone is worth $5 million. They're in Florida. So anyway, the another honorable mention is a guy named Ed Young. Anybody familiar with Ed?
No.
A lot of these names, people are making millions of bucks, and we've never really heard of. They're not even on the top tier yet. They're 11 million bucks. He's out of Dallas. Oh, why not? He also has $1 million wife, and he keeps preaching sermons to let people know that it's a good relationship.
Oh,
having
I'm sure
to do
it
with
is.
good sex, boy. Anyway, here's one that I think you're going to be more familiar with. Joyce Meyer.
Yes.
Yeah, there we
yes.
go. 25 mil.
She's known for saying stupid
25
things.
mil.
Amazing.
According to the richest website, she has a net worth of over 25 million. And when you realize that the average American makes $50,000 a year, they'd have to work for 500 years to make what she makes in 1 year. She makes so much money that some of her furniture costs more than most people's new cars.
Yeah.
So she has like in her bathroom, she found out that she's got a $23,000 toilet and a $30,000 coffee table. And if you want to look online, you can actually see where that money has gone to enrich herself.
You better put a coaster on the coffee table.
Yeah, and she has a mansion that would be fit for her whole congregation to live in, I would imagine. But she says, no, she does God's work, and
of
she's
course.
entitled to it. And then there's one that I know you know, Benny Hinn.
Oh,
45 million.
Oh,
That's
Benny
his
Hinn.
intake.
Benny Hinn in his magic jacket.
Yeah,
Have you seen those videos, Kirsten?
That's right.
No.
Yeah, he's got this congregation, and they're all standing in front of him, and he usually dresses up in white. He takes off his jacket, and he swings his jacket like it's the power of God in some wind, and the whole congregation falls backwards like there's been some huge wave of power. It's,
I think I've seen some better vines and memes on that one.
Yeah, he's got a $4.5 million private jet, an $80,000 SUV, an $80,000 sports car, and a $265,000 BMW, and $1 million annual salary.
Well, damn.
He knows how to live in luxury. And his parishioners, on average, probably are around $25,000, $30,000 a year.
Recently, Benny Hinn has been known for doing quote-unquote healings. A lot of healings. And recently, he went to the hospital himself. Surprising that a guy that can do healings can't seem to heal himself.
Well,
Isn't
it
that
doesn't.
strange?
It doesn't work like that, Kevin.
It doesn't?
No.
Oh, I'm the one.
You can
who's
only
confused.
heal others. You can't heal yourself.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I knew.
That's like not being able to pardon yourself if you're pregnant. I got it now. This is number 10 is the guy who I can't even pronounce his last name, so I'm gonna butcher it, but I'll try. It's Chris Oyakhilome. Anyway, this guy's, we don't know who he is, and people give him $50,000 a year, and he was in the middle of a $35 million money laundering case, and he was accused of siphoning funds from his church to foreign banks. But he's also amassed millions from a lot of working poor in Nigeria. So I don't know whether he's out of Nigeria or whatever. So he's been able to invest a lot of money in television stations. And
That's even
so forth.
worse. When you're taking poor people in poor country on top of that, it's like, God damn it, man.
Yeah. Number 9, one of my personal favorites, Joel Osteen.
He's only number 9, really?
Number 9,
The man with a
55
smile.
mil. 55 mil. I was in his father's church near Houston and attended one of the sermons.
Mm-hmm.
Joel was too young at this point. This goes back to the 80s. And it was like going to a rock concert with opening acts and music and lights and camera and action and people swaying to the music and swaying to the prayers that were being given and speaking in tongues. It was an extremely emotional experience because you get 15,000 people all involved in what is going on, and they're being taken over and swaying. You really have to hold yourself back because it's very tempting, just to want to
follow the crowd.
Rock. Yeah, it's like a rock concert. And then there's this wonderful bookstore that he's got and gift shop, so you can donate, but then you can also buy things. They don't miss a trick. They just don't miss a trick.
Joel Osteen is one of those. These pastors don't have to reveal how much money they make. And we got a glimpse into Joel Osteen's world because, was it last year? Somebody took off with the donations from that week at his megachurch. And when they asked how much money was that, it was an estimated between $500,000 and $600,000 in donations for a week for a megachurch.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So now here's a good glimpse into the world of these people.
Yeah, Joel Osteen doesn't even take a salary from the church anymore. He gets so much money, you know, from the other sources, but he can brag about the fact that he doesn't take a salary.
He's probably sponsored by Colgate too.
Yeah, but he was investigated on housing allowances and so forth, but details are kind of shadowy. T.D. Jakes is another one. No, he's $150 million, and we don't even know who he is. He really brings. He's from Atlanta, I gather. He's worth more than $18 million, over 200 times the average wage. He takes in a lot of money from book sales, speaking arrangements, and things like that. He's pretty much on the circuit. So he's one. Number 7 is one that we've talked about before, Robert Tilton. He was disgraced and thrown out, but lives in Florida. He still is worth $100 million. At least he was at one time. He's still raking in that money. I was at his church as well in Dallas, and I was sitting sort of in the cheap seats up above, but it was where he came in, and so I was sitting about 3 seats away from where he made his grand entrance, you know, down to. And
did you feel the power of God?
I did. I felt the power of Khan. I mean, he was. He had the swagger, he had the confidence, he had the I'm above all of you. As he walked by, you could just feel this animal magnetism, you know, heading down, because it was almost like, you know, I'm so far above you, I don't even have to acknowledge that you're here. Yeah. But in his day, he just attracted a zillion people, you know, a week on his show in Dallas. So, and at his height, he was making $80 million each year. But then what happened was, some investigative reporters, I'm not quite sure on this, went to his dumpster and found out that all of these prayer letters that had been sent in with them, they just threw them all in the dumpster, and so that was the end for a while. But he doesn't. There's still no IRS disclosures. Yeah. So anyway, these are just some of the guys that are. Don't have to go through the whole list. But there are some of them.
Give us at least number 1 or something.
Yeah. Well, the number 1 is. Let's see.
Oh, let's go through the list a bit.
Skipping over everybody. Kenneth Copeland.
Copeland.
100 and over 12 million. Let's say I'm confused on my.
You might have a typo there.
Yeah,
a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Who came in at number 2?
$1 billion. $1,200,000.
Oh my God! My
That's
God!
What he is. There we go.
Who came in at
confused by zeros.
Who came in at number 2?
Number 2, Adair Maceo.
I have no idea who that is.
No idea who these people are. But
Peter Popoff, is he on the list?
Creflo Dollar.
Creflo Dollar, I heard of Creflo Dollar.
One of the guys that is one of the biggest is a guy named Bishop Franklin L. Fountain in Bridgeport, Connecticut. His father was head of the church. When he became the head of the church, the church itself was valued at $1.25 million. So in the dark of night, with nobody looking, he transferred the church to his own name. So then he owned the church. It's still the trial is still pending, but that was one of the biggest. I mean, why wait for donations when you've got the property?
Yeah, exactly.
So he just signed it over to him.
Was Popoff in there?
Pardon?
Peter Popoff.
Peter Popoff is there, but he didn't. He made the list, but not the top 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'll have to go back and see. I know Popoff is
crooks
there on
all over the place.
List, but let's see.
I know the one there.
Yeah, he's number 5. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
He's number 5.
No surprise there.
With Paul and Jan Crouch being number 6.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, that's
thank you,
it
Nancy.
took a little bit, but I thought just the kind of the background of some of these.
It's a good look into the world of these con artists.
I mean, this goes back to Amy Semple McPherson, back in the early 1900s. So this is not new. It's just that they've learned a more efficient way of raking that money in.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And these are just
Amazing.
American pastors. So, of course, you're seeing that all over the world now, especially in poor places like Uganda and stuff like that. They're taking a page from these American pastors and doing the same thing.
We have about 10 or so, or maybe more, in Canada, but because of the more strict charity laws, it just doesn't reach the level of the States. But it is here.
They'll try it here, too.
And the parishioners are just as rabid, but they just don't lose as much. They don't fork over as much money.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Nancy. That was very interesting. My dear Kirsten, you ready to do another brilliant moment?
I sure am.
Excellent. Brought to you by religion.
All right, first one up. I think we've heard from this lovely lady before. Prophetess Kat Kerr took authority over a storm and a volcano to no avail.
Oh, wait. That was a swoosher. The one with the stick that was swoosh the storm. Oh, I love her.
She's back.
Oh, she's back.
On Memorial Day, Kat Kerr, a prophetess who claims that God brought her up to heaven before the 2016 election and told her that Donald Trump would be elected president, posted a video on her Facebook page in which she took authority over subtropical storm Alberto and Hawaii's Kilauea volcano, ordering them both to cease causing any damage.
See, I remember when we did the story on her, it was a hurricane, but now she went on subtropical storm. I think she's just downgraded a bit. Her power is not as strong as she thinks it is. She's just swooshing away hard enough.
There was no swooshing this time. At the time, Alberto was heading toward the southern United States, and Kerr used her weather warrior staff, okay, maybe there was swooshing, to declare that the storm would dissipate and not cause any flooding, damage, or deaths. I, as a believer of Jesus Christ, I take authority over that storm, she declared. I say to you, storm, you will diminish.
Swoosh.
Swoosh.
You are going to hear reports of it being downgraded because it has to obey us, she guaranteed. Somebody sent me a message saying...
downgrade and dissipate anyway at some point.
But because she said so.
Oh, okay. Because otherwise it would have went the other way. As compared to all the other storms in history ever.
Yes. Somebody sent me a message saying, who do you think you are? Jesus Christ? You think you can command the weather? And I went, absolutely yes. I am a joint heir. Are you kidding? He took authority over the weather, and we are supposed to be doing the same.
Yeah, that's right.
You will not do destruction to your country, Kerr told the storm. You will not bring flooding rains. We command the rain to cease.
There's nothing better than going out there and standing on your balcony, yelling at a cloud and tell it to stop.
The storm, not surprisingly, did not obey her commands.
What?
Oh.
Bad storm.
Yeah,
Bad storm. What are you going to do? Spray it with a squirt bottle?
You need to listen to Swooshy Lady.
Yes, listen to Swooshy Lady. And then, she also commanded the volcano that has been erupting on Hawaii's largest island for over a month now to stop flowing. We have authority over volcanoes, she said. We can even tell them to stop. Christ stopped the storm. So while we're taking power and authority over the devil controlling that volcano, people are going to be laughing about this. I totally ignore them. Just ignore them. I don't know what they're saying, and they don't even know what's going on. They don't understand spirit realm authority. They don't understand that Jesus makes us joint heirs, but I do.
But it's pretty amazing.
You tell them, Swoosher Girl. We're behind you.
It's pretty amazing that she decides to stop the volcano 1 month in, instead of on day 2.
Or maybe, oh my goodness, there's a volcano erupting. Let's stop.
Exactly. No, he has to wait a good month before, finally, you got to stop now. And the volcano might decide to, it's done.
She goes on to say, so I take authority over that volcano, Kerr declared. I command it to cease exploding, shooting out the lava. That the pressure be released, but without any destruction to people. I command that lava, you will stop flowing, and you will crystallize before you touch any more people or their property. Surprisingly, the volcano does not seem to be obeying Kerr's commands either.
It'd be even funny if the volcano started to really erupt all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's hard. It's just hard to believe that they're not paying attention. I don't know what it is in Mother Nature that causes that kind of obstinance against her.
I mean, I use a stick and I swoosh the weather all the time here.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work here either. Jeez. Maybe her
I think
technique
the only
is-
stick that's going to work against nature is a fly swatter against a mosquito.
Yeah, and then even then.
And even then, you really got to keep at it. All right. So, there's our swishy lady again.
Yep.
Maybe we'll hear from her
I
again
would
soon.
love to interview her. Oh my god, it'd
Yeah,
be so
oh.
hilarious.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
It would be hilarious.
Do you think she does interviews with atheists?
No, probably
Would
not.
she command us to stop broadcasting?
I command
Maybe.
you to stop.
But are we going to listen?
Yeah, well, we'd be just like the volcano and other forces of nature, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I command you to stop recording. What?
That's right.
She'd probably hit me over the head with a stick.
All right.
Atheism versus the Swisher lady.
Oh, that would be a great title.
Yeah.
It's not the Swiffer anymore. It's the Swisher.
That's kind of like, Mothra against...
Oh, God. Keep going, dear.
All right. Woman says this horseshoe crab shell is a sign from God, but science disagrees.
Horseshoe crabs.
Horseshoe crab.
Oh, Jesus had a pet horseshoe crab, I bet.
Yes, he did. He wrote on it. It was giant. Forget the jet. He wants to ride on a crab. An author in Florida says God spoke to her and made the image of Jesus Christ appear on a horseshoe crab shell. Kathy Rader was given the shell by a friend, and she put it on her front porch without noticing anything unique about it. It was only after a lot of prayer that she noticed it was actually Jesus.
After a lot of prayer?
After a lot of prayer.
Jeez. I wonder what influence with that was.
I was reading my devotional that morning. I've been playing the waiting game as I am publishing a book. I'm very excited about it, but it has taken longer than I thought. I've been doing a lot of prayer and learning to wait on God and His timing. God spoke to me that morning and said, "See, child, if you wait on me, I will give you perfection." And I immediately knew He meant wait. I will give you what you need in my time, not
She
yours.
needed a horseshoe crab?
Was there any liquid refreshment available to her during this time of waiting?
I'm really not sure.
Apparently her perfection, what she needed was a horseshoe crab. Because everybody needs a horseshoe crab.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've got one right here in the kitchen.
I went by the crab shell and something caught my eye. There was a marking on the top of it, and just for a second I thought it looked like Jesus' face, and I kind of chuckled at that and thought, that's pretty appropriate, and sent it to a couple of my friends. Like, I'm assuming what happened was she took a picture of it and sent it to a couple of her
She
friends.
sent the horseshoe crab itself.
Yes, just send the crab. One said Jesus, and one said Jesus, but when you turn it around, it looks like an angel. It's changing a little bit every day. I kept looking at it, and some of the dark markings seemed to fade. Some of my Christian friends immediately got chills, and they just thought, that is Jesus. Look at this face. Look at that long beard. People saw different things, but the face was one thing they all saw, and the angel was something that almost all of them saw. Everyone felt really good about it. I look at it every day, and I feel so blessed by it, and it was a sign from God.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know. It kind of appeals to me more than the toasted cheese sandwich that had the face of Mary Magdalene on it, or was it Jesus? I forget. Was it Mary? Or
I don't know.
There was a I think they saw Jesus on a dog's butt once.
Yeah.
Also, I think there was a piece of toast.
Yeah.
I
had Jesus.
I thought it was a toasted cheese sandwich, but that's
We should-
There could have been one.
We should do a graph, because it seems to me that the power of God is diminishing with time. Here at the beginning of time, He creates the universe, the heavens and the earth, and then eventually He changes water into wine, and then He chases a couple of demons, and now He's appearing on horseshoe crabs. It seems to be this inverse correlation with time and His power, it seems. I don't know.
There's just something appealing about the crab, and the power of Jesus. That it's appealing to me.
He's God for
Yeah,
crustaceans, too.
I'm on the cusp here of almost being a believer.
Because remember, this isn't it's not just one image, it's changing.
Changing.
changing
Exactly.
image, oh.
Changing.
And it's not surprising that an extremely religious person would think she saw Jesus, even in an unexpected place. What is surprising is how it sounds like she didn't really believe that it was Jesus until she got reinforcement from friends and family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Or she realized it could help her sell copies of her new book.
Holy Krampus.
In her initial
surely
interview,
not. Surely this only has religious value, and she's not thinking of the power of marketing.
No, of course
no,
not.
never.
No. She needs to talk to Peter Popoff, I guess, to give her a little inspiration on that.
In her initial interview, Rader went to say that when she first saw the image, she thought maybe that's a common marking. She says she did a Google search of images, and none of them had any distinct markings at all.
Wow.
As thorough and as scientifically valid as that research was, the author of this article thought they would try to duplicate the results. Unfortunately for her, all they had to do was search horseshoe crab shell and got an image of two similar pieces. It turns out these shells aren't out of the ordinary at all. In the same article, the one Rader shared to her Holy Crab Facebook page, the phenomenon, if you want to call it that, is explained. Michael Brothers, manager of the Marine Science Center in Ponce Inlet, said, "I don't know that I would make too much of this pattern. As the shell of a horseshoe crab dies, it shows a wide range of patterns. A fully dried specimen shows a wide range of light and dark intricate patterns." Well, there you have it. This woman claims the shell is a sign from God, and many people believe her.
Oh, man,
but science respectfully provides a reasonable counterpoint.
I was so looking forward to having a whole bunch of Christians wear horseshoe crabs around their necks.
It's
That'd be kind
coming.
of cool. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it would make a better hat. They're pretty big.
I think so. Maybe when you buy the book, you'll get the horseshoe crab as a bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you make crab cakes?
I mean,
out of
there's
that
a
crab?
lot of crab cakes.
I don't know if
Holy
you could
crab
make
cake.
crab cakes.
Yeah. Holy crab cake. There's a lot of marketing potential
Yeah,
there
holy
for-
crab cakes right
for
there.
a smart Christian evangelist of one
Yeah,
kind or
exactly.
another.
Benny Hinn, where are you, man?
Yeah. I may write them myself. I mean, it's my idea. I would hate to see someone come in and deprive us of all that money we could be making by the crab shells.
Yeah, you got a
We
contract.
could
but
go out
it-
crabbing. Where did she get them? We could go out crabbing every week.
I'm not sure where she was. It was a friend that gave her the shell.
Oh, all right. Well, we got a little clam digging to do, but I think there's potential there.
There's always potential.
Always potential.
All right, so you know how important it is to teach people about consent, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, keep that in mind. Baptist pastor flips out over teaching babies consent. Don't let them win.
What? Teaching babies consent?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Last month, a sex educator named Deanne Carson appeared on Australian TV and said parents of newborns could develop a culture of consent at home by talking about the subject loosely when changing the baby's diapers. The parents could say something like, "I'm going to change your nappy now, is that okay?" Sure, Carson admitted, the baby wasn't going to respond, but the point was the principle. It was a way to teach babies that they controlled their bodies and no one had the right to touch them without permission.
Yeah, I heard about that. It was a bit controversial.
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm totally on board with that. There is a limit, especially
Yeah.
when you get to kids and they get the, "I don't give you consent to touch me" kind of... They're kids.
Yeah.
There's an important lesson in an age when child sexual abuse occurs more often than we might want to admit. How do you teach a child that a stranger shouldn't touch them inappropriately and that even relatives have no right to hug or kiss them against their will? Teach permission.
Well, now they tell us that. Wish
Yeah.
they told me that when I was a kid, and I wouldn't have my great aunt Sophie pinch my cheeks every time.
Yeah. Okay, so now with that lovely little, it's the initial, with that in mind. As you might expect, though, the internet went crazy, with even mainstream publications mocking what she said. Conservative outlets, as you'd expect, blew her comments completely out of proportion, saying
course.
Carson was telling parents they needed to get consent before changing a newborn. She didn't, and they don't. Now, listen to what Brother Adam Fannin has to say about it. He's a pastor at Steadfast Jacksonville Church in Florida, an independent fundamental Baptist church that resembles every other small hate-filled group. And he's basically going on the factor of how he has a clip that he did that is titled "Feminists Hate Babies." And he just starts going off about how we can't teach the children this because when the children are our rulers, that's the judgment of God. That's showing that something's wrong with justice and judgment. And we need to protect our children and we need to teach them about God and
Don't let the kids rule.
Right? And he goes off on this crazy Bible-based rant about how parents have to control their children. And basically it ends up, to put it another way, a woman said kids should be taught from birth that touching them against their will isn't okay. And a Christian pastor responded with, don't listen to that crazy feminist. You can touch the baby whenever you want because God said so.
That's going to be, as an atheist, I guess you can't use the "and God said so" to justify everything that you want. We really don't have an advantage of doing anything we want without consequences. We're doing it because God said so. I love it. It's the ultimate excuse.
Yeah, exactly. God, these pastors, they're afraid of kids, they're afraid of everything, they're afraid of every little bit of authority they
they are.
can and probably will lose. Well, thank you, dear. Really appreciate that. Thank you, ladies. And let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll be with Erik and Matthew, some Odd Atheist Friends.
Looking forward to it.
So stay with us.
If your skepticism is socially conscious and doesn't take itself too seriously, you might like life, the universe, and everything else.
People like Ray Comfort are fond of saying, what use is half a wing, right? Have you ever seen a fucking penguin?
Life, the universe, and everything else. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else.
I don't know, Zune? Is that still a thing?
In a world torn apart by a lack of reason,
or lease.
And I think it should be religion treated with ridicule and hatred and contempt. And I claim that right.
In the morning.
Hi, everybody. This is Robert Stanley from the Right to Reason podcast. And if you subscribe now, you'll get free.
Learn more about the broadcast at therighttoreason.com.
Nine million children die every year before they reach the age of 5. Any God who would allow children by the millions to suffer and die in this way either can do nothing to help them or doesn't care to. He is therefore either impotent or evil. But this, to me, is the true horror of religion. It allows perfectly decent and sane people to believe by the billions what only lunatics could believe on their own. If you wake up tomorrow morning thinking that saying a few Latin words over your pancakes is going to turn them into the body of Elvis Presley, you have lost your mind. But if you think more or less the same thing about a cracker and the body of Jesus, you're just a Catholic.
Well, joining us online is Erik and Matthew. These guys are Odd Atheist Friends.
Odd Atheist Friends?
They're also snappy dressers and snazzy dancers. Erik, Matthew, thank you so much for joining us at Left of the Valley.
Thank you. Appreciate coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You say that now, but you might regret it later.
You haven't been on our show yet. You'd really regret it then.
Well, you know what? Maybe I decided to take the first bite. Erik, Matthew, for our listeners that might be familiar with your podcast, maybe you'd be so kind to give us a brief description of who you guys are and how this whole thing started.
Erik, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I'm a 23-year-old trans guy from North Carolina, and Matthew is a 46-year-old.
I just had my
47-year-old.
When you say trans
veteran.
guy, you say like Trans Am or?
Yeah.
Not the car, right?
No, I'm transgender. So I was born female, and now I'm presenting as male.
Yep.
And we're both atheists, and we met like 10 years ago when I was a teenage girl, and we were both on a blogging site. And it sounds really creepy when I put it that way, but...
The comments of Matthew and Erik are not necessarily those of Left of the Valley subsidiaries.
Erik was writing poetry, and somehow or another there was like a poetry circle, and I commented on one of his poems. I'm like, oh, that poem was really nice, and we got to be friends. And in the middle of that, I got divorced, and Erik was there, and we just kind of became kind of like pen pals, kind of a thing. You know?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was active duty at the time. I was stationed on a ship in Norfolk, and then I went to Japan. And when I was there, I became from kind of like a societal Christian to becoming an atheist. And so, when I was younger, I was a Bible believing, the Bible is the written true word of God, every last bit of it, fundamentalist Christian asshole. And so, like I've said in the past on the show, it's like I would have called Erik all kinds of horrible names. Now I call him all kinds of terrible names just for other reasons.
Yeah, but at least it's with love now, right? There's
at least it's with love now.
It's not Christian love; it's like real love.
Yeah, exactly. And after Trump pretty much got in office, I was like, I need to do something about this. I felt, like I need to get my voice out there to be some kind of opposition to what's being the right backlash that is going on in the United States. And I was like, anybody know anything about podcasts? And Erik was like, make one. I'm like, do you want to be my co-host? And he's like, yeah. And so we started a little over a year ago now.
And a podcast was born.
And
a good friendship, good, because the way the story was going at first, it sounded more like an episode of Creep Catchers or something like that. And I was like, oh, geez, man, did we make a mistake?
No, it was nothing like that. Actually, we've never met face-to-face.
No, really?
Oh, that was going to be my next question as to whether you guys have ever been in the same place at the same time.
Matthew's in Chicago, and Erik, where are you out of?
North Carolina.
On purpose?
Unfortunately, I was born here, and I'm finishing college here. But after that, I'm probably leaving.
Where in North Carolina are you?
Well, I'm from Western North Carolina, in the middle of nowhere. But right now, I'm living in Raleigh.
I was in Greensboro for a couple of years, so it's a nice state. Politically, it sucks, but the state itself is a beautiful place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nancy.
It's basically Satan's taint.
Yeah.
As far as their viewpoints go.
Yeah, Nancy was actually an American citizen for the past 200 years, something like that.
Something like that.
Before
since the founding.
Because she's the wandering Jew, right? So she's been around forever. But for a while, when America was formed and George Washington helped her sign the Constitution and all that, she was part of that. So she lives as an American as well. So basically, you guys decided to create a show, and I think the title is very appropriate, Odd Atheist Friends, because it's a bit like the Odd Couple, these two, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, you got the point.
Perfect, great. I'm not as dumb as I look.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Erik and I are the Odd Atheist Friends because Erik is a 23-year-old trans man, and I'm a former fundamentalist Christian in my middle-aged asshole. Now I'm not a fundamentalist asshole. Now I'm just a regular asshole.
Good. It's good to make a distinction,
Yeah.
Hey, you've got all the makings of a great show.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds perfect to us.
The whole thing is like when you listen to us, we usually get a couple of points we want to discuss, and then the discussion is free form, and you're hearing us talk about what we want to talk about. It's not censored. It's edited as far as like for time and uhs and ums a little bit. But that's what you're hearing is a discussion between two people with wildly different viewpoints sometimes.
These guys are going to fit into our show just perfectly.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
You're our kind of guys, that's for sure.
Yeah, so guys, what do you think about sex with furniture? No, I'm sorry. So I'm going back to the show.
Oh, I watched some weird porn about that recently.
As long as it's Scotch guarded, be my guest.
No, for real. Okay, I watched this video about this guy in a hotel room, and he was showing how he could fuck everything in the hotel room, and I was just disgusted.
Wow.
Now my question is, why are you watching this video?
Education.
Education?
Because it's so weirdly out there that you just can't not watch it.
Yeah, I'm not really
sure. You've never been down some real rabbit holes on Pornhub. There are some deep rabbit holes to go down, my man.
Yeah, I right before that video, or maybe right after, I saw this guy fucking pizza dough, and then in the comments, it was people that work at pizza places, and they were saying, yeah, this happens all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, I'm never buying pizza out again.
Ignorance is bliss. That's what I'm saying. It's like I've seen pictures of like you go to like Taco Bell and somebody's licked all the taco shells. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to know.
Okay.
I really don't want to know. Ignorance is bliss.
I need to repeat this. The comments of Eric and Matthew are not necessarily those of Left of the Valley subsidiaries and employees, etc.
My comments are not necessarily the viewpoints of the Odd Atheist Friends.
Everything south of our border stays south.
That's right. So how you guys have been doing this for a show for about a year now, and let's maybe take a look at what you guys have seen. Have you guys seen much of a difference in when you started your podcast as where you are now? And I'm talking about how people view atheists, maybe the political climate of where you're in. How is it different than when you guys started, or is it? They didn't expect a real question. That's the thing, right? These guys didn't expect real questions.
I was thinking softball, and you zinged in a Zambrano fastball, man. That was 96 miles an hour. What the hell?
To me personally, I think the only real difference I've noticed is that, and that this difference might just be because we have gotten in the community more, or I have, is that there seem to be more people in the community. There seems to be more open talk about it. There seems to be a lot of arguing back and forth, though, about whether or not being an atheist is also being a humanist and all of that. So that's something I've noticed happen in the past year.
That came out like right after the Mythicist Milwaukee.
Yes.
With Thomas Smith and all the drama that happened after that.
Yeah.
And I'll be really honest, I really got turned off on a lot of podcasts because of that. Like, there are some of the biggies in the podcasting world that I just don't listen to anymore.
Really?
Because of support of one side or the other on what happened at Mythicist Milwaukee with I don't even remember what to call the guy. I came up with a nickname because I refused to call him by the name that he goes by.
Yeah.
Oh, dickhead of fuckface. That's what I call him.
the YouTuber that Thomas Smith was talking to?
Yes, I call him dickhead of fuckface. I refuse to call him by his name.
That's a wonderful name.
Thanks.
I'm drawing a blank here. Which
he is a horrible.
I forget his actual name. I think his name is like Carl or something.
Oh,
dickhead of fuckface. I don't care what his name is.
Sargon, you mean? Sargon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Dickhead of fuckface?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, it's a topic. It's a topic we didn't visit a whole lot up here in Canada because it's it seemed to be more an American-centric problem.
We actually have laws up here against that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Free speech in Canada is not exactly the same as free speech in the States. So, anyway, please go on. Don't let me interrupt you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're at fuckface.
Yeah, dickhead of fuckface. So anyways, this asshole, he just, it seems like, we all know that atheist is just a lack of belief in a God. That's it. Mm-hmm. That there's a range of everything else. And it seems like you get these people who are just all about tearing people down, and that's it. They don't care about the person at all.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, kind of like the difference with a lot of this stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. We're all staring at each other saying,
So
I don't know.
So with all of the different conversations that you have, are you pretty well on the theme of atheism and humanism, or what kind of topics do you like to cover, and what kind of topics do you want to cover coming up?
Mm-hmm.
So I like talking about gay things, trans things, and dick jokes. That's my specialty.
That's awesome.
Yeah, as far as me, I like talking about how, what the current politics is and how it relates to things like in the military. And I also like talking about humanist stuff. I'm also really kind of big, something that I call the Detectives Corner, about police violence in the U.S., whether called or uncalled for. So, yeah, that kind of stuff. That's what I like to talk about.
Yeah, it's sad how much there is to talk about that.
It's sad there is so much to talk about.
One of the reasons why is Tamir Rice was a child who got killed in Pennsylvania, who was either a child with a toy gun or he was an adult with a gun in open carry state, and he still got shot and killed by the officer who didn't even open the door. So which is it? Either way, you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. No, we can't, on our podcast, we can't help but compare often what goes on from your country to our country. We had an incident very recently where a gentleman ran over with a van. He ran over a whole bunch of people, and he was trying to do suicide by cop, and the police officer actually didn't shoot him, although he had every right to do so. And
I saw the video.
Yeah, and actually arrested him, without incident. And you kind of wonder that if we can do that, how come they can't seem to be able to do that in the U.S.?
Well, I think the biggest difference is in Canada, we're trained first to de-escalate.
De-escalate, yeah.
Like, so much of our training is about de-escalation and using the least amount of force. Where in the States, it's like, okay, yeah, just like fear for your life. Everyone's going to have a gun, so just shoot them.
Well, Matthew's an ex-military. Matthew's an ex-military man. Maybe, Matthew, you have some insight into the police training in the U.S.?
I do, and I was also ex-military police.
Oh, there we go. So
I was military police actually between 98 and 02. And so I was in Spain when 9/11 happened, and I was on duty during all of that stuff. So, yeah. So, a lot of the civilian cops, which is one of the reasons why I didn't go police when I retired from the Navy, was because of, it seems like these guys are not using the escalation of force. They're not using lower levels of force. They go, it seems like, from physical presence to physical confrontation to drawing the pistol. Or from physical presence to immediately drawing the pistol without using anything in between, without using any kind of chemical, without using a taser, nothing. I can tell you something, as somebody who's had to carry chemical weapons, mace, pepper spray, that kind of stuff, we had to get sprayed with it. And once you get sprayed with that shit, you don't want to have it happen again, because it hurts a lot. So I've been pepper sprayed, I've been maced, and I've been tear gassed. It's all no joke. And so, you get a 5% of pepper spray in the eyes. My face hurt for 3 days. My eyes had clenched so tight. So once you get pepper sprayed, it's no joke. It's capsicum. It's a heavy duty thing. So you zap somebody in the face, dude. It's only gonna be not effective in like 0.01% of the time. So why doesn't and it affects large groups of people too. And so you can either use it in a mist. They've got stuff that mists, or they got stuff that's direct jet right into somebody's eyes from 30 feet away. Yeah, they're not going to move. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I totally understand. So you kind of agree that maybe there should be more training of de-escalation in the U.S. civilian police forces.
I think that for one, we need to have less availability of weapons. There are, like, when I got my concealed carry permit, it was all military that I went through with, and even some of those people I wouldn't have trusted with potato gun. I'm just saying that, like, being able to, we need a license to drive a car, so why not have the same thing when it comes to weapons?
Yeah,
and
totally.
Police are not trained as well as they should in escalation of force. They're scared, so they immediately draw the pistol. Well, why are you scared? You've got a bulletproof vest on. You've got tactical advantage, especially in, like, when you're doing a traffic stop. You're coming from behind. You're coming from weird angles. They got the takedown lights on. You're in the car. You're blinded with so much light. And so I'm just saying is like, and if you're that big of a pussy, then maybe you shouldn't have the job. Fuck you with a cactus.
That hurts.
I agree fully.
With the cactus part?
Both, yes.
Oh, okay. Erik, I'm going to ask you a question. Since you're a trans man, we've had some transgender people on the show, and we always love to have them. There's been some recent developments in the States about especially that Supreme Court ruling in Colorado. Do you feel that this has become an easier time for the transgendered and LGBT community, or do you think things are going to get worse in the States?
I think that is definitely going to have a mixed answer. I think it's easier in certain aspects in that we, as the LGBT community, can be a little more open most of the time, and people are more aware of our existence and our issues and the issues we face, like legally and in society and everything. But that also brings out things like this Supreme Court case and questioning whether or not we do have the right to do certain things. And it shows us, the people that think we aren't supposed to do certain things, like buy a cake or adopt children or get married or anything. And especially in North Carolina and the South, I've seen a rise of people coming up that do not understand, especially trans people, and they just think that I can't even go to the bathroom. Like, I don't even know what bathroom they want me to go to anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really difficult, but I think that the only thing that I can do and anyone in the community or any allies can do is to try to educate people, because I think most of their issues with us is coming from just a fear of people being different than them. And what I try to do through my show and just through my interactions in daily life is educate people on what it means to be a transgender person and what my life is like, and that I'm not actually that much different than them.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Wouldn't you gentlemen agree that maybe, it seems that every social advancement in our society has been fought tooth and nail by the religious, and they created a lot of damage by doing so. But at the same time, the good news is they've lost every battle. The
problem is I think that I think they realize that they're losing.
Yes.
And that with the internet, and so the kids are seeing what's going on, and I think as a general that we're liberalizing society, and I use that with the small L, not the big L.
Yeah.
And so that with the liberalization of society, that even kids today, there's a lot less of the Generation Z and what is it, Generation Y, that are not as religious and don't go to church and that kind of stuff. So eventually, all these old jagoffs who are making Erik's life hell, they're going to go away. There's going to eventually come a point where there's going to be less and less of them, and all the things that we see all seems to be leaning that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, temporarily things get a little bit worse. And I think it's a thing of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I saw kind of a meme on this, and this is something I want to do. Whenever I go into a store now to buy a cake, I'm going to ask if Hector and myself can buy a wedding cake.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Even if it's for like a birthday or something.
Exactly.
I mean, you can just advocate when you can. Up here, we now have in the public schools what they call a SOGI 123 program, and that stands for sexual orientation and gender identity, and it's based around inclusion, and it depends on the grade level, but the children are from kindergarten up have classes and subjects and different events, and trying to think of the word.
They're being taught not to be dicks.
They're actually presented with fairy tales and things like that, and then asked how those stories can relate to people's real lives if they're transgender, or it just depends on the grade level. But the programs are very successful, except for the old white guys who are still
fighting them, right?
resisting. But that's one area in Canada that we're really proud of. And then over the last Thursday, I was at an event at a public place and had to go to the ladies' room, and there were signs all over saying trans individuals are welcome here. And so things are changing up here, and I think as the young people become more of a voting force, that eventually the liberalism will take over there. But it's going to take some time.
I was, what was that? That Jagoff, the guy in the college up there in Canada.
Jordan Peterson.
I hate him so much.
Anyways,
Jason,
so it's like,
Jason?
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson. So he's like, it was like, well, soon we're going to have people identify as an H string of numbers or like an attack helicopter. It's like, okay, for one, you're an asshole. Two, a random string of numbers and an attack helicopter have no freedom of choice. They're objects.
Yeah.
So it's not a person. So shut the fuck up. You're an asshole.
Yeah. He's using his 15 minutes of fame right now, and he's very popular with that. He's making a lot of money, but at the same time,
it's not over yet.
No, it's not. Unfortunately,
15 minutes was over.
He's
yet.
actually this next weekend having a conference in Vancouver with Sam Harris. My twin sister is obsessed with him.
I think
Sam Harris has turned into one of the assholes that I no longer listen to.
I think though that his popularity is diminishing slowly but surely, because if you actually start listening to one of the debates, like for the one he had with Matt Dillahunty,
gosh, it's so awesome.
You realize he's like the Deepak Chopra of Christians now. He says a lot of things that don't say anything. It's like, what are you talking about?
I'm sure Dillahunty destroyed him.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, well, of course, it depends what side of the battle you're on, right? I'm sure some people would say Jordan Peterson destroyed Dillahunty, but personally, I think Dillahunty was way better.
Matt Dillahunty was in the Navy and was a bosun mate. Go Navy!
Yeah. So what's next for Odd Atheist Friends? Where are you guys going with your show? You got some interesting things coming on the pipe?
All right, so we're hopefully meeting in person for the first time in Chicago toward the end of the month.
In Chicago?
And
you think you'll survive that?
I don't know. I might get shot. Anyway, I'm just kidding. If I don't get shot here, I'll probably be fine. But we're also trying to do some video live streams because we have been on a bit of a hiatus the past month or two because I have a broken laptop and haven't been able to edit the show. So I'm thinking if we can do some live streams, I won't have to edit, and it'll be really cool. Plus, people like seeing our faces because we look funny.
Have no idea why. I've got to ask a fast question because this is something we ask our guests, but since we haven't had a show in a while, I'm hurting to do it.
Hey! You're the guest. Don't turn the tables on us. You're the guest.
Play Dungeons and Dragons.
What's that?
Dungeons and Dragons.
What about it?
It's awesome.
Did you play?
I haven't played it, but I'm a huge fan, and I really would love to.
I did play as a kid, yes.
You did play? Okay,
yes.
Great. Okay.
I didn't.
Just wanted to know.
It was the devil growing up with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she grew up in a fundamentalist.
I literally talked about it once, and my uncle was like, "You're going to let the demons in." I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah, I had one of the elders of my church, his wife said to me that I was like casting spells and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, rolling dice is not casting spells. But anyways.
Yeah. Nancy actually had a real pet dragon, but that was like centuries ago.
I want a pet dragon.
I've got a pet crab shell now that has the face of Jesus on it. So I don't. Yeah, I'm evolving. For sure.
Matthew, Eric, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, but the mic is all yours, guys. Be shameless. Go ahead and plug yourself.
I always love it when guests ask me to do that.
Eric, go ahead.
There you go. He calls us the guest again. No, that's the other way around, Eric. God damn it.
I meant when I'm a guest. Sorry. Anyway, so you can find our show, The Odd Atheist Friends, at patreon.com/OAF or facebook.com/OAF podcast. And of course, you can listen to us on whatever you listen to podcasts on. And you can also listen to me as a rotating co-host, not guest, on Hertzy Talks, where we talk about things like D&D and the Satanic Panic.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Eric, Matthew, thank you so much for joining us. But before I let you go, I gotta have you say, hi, this is Eric and Matthew of Odd Atheist Friend, and we took a left at the valley.
Hi, this is Matthew.
Hi, this is Eric.
Take two. Clack. Try again.
Oh my gosh.
Don't feel bad.
Hi,
we were in the
Matthew.
same situation.
Okay.
You just spoke over him.
Matthew.
I did too.
Jesus Christ.
Hi.
Hi. This is Matthew.
This is Eric.
And we're on the Odd Atheist Friends, and we took a left at the valley.
Beautiful.
Well, there they were, Erik and Matthew of Odd Atheist Friends.
They were
Are they
so
hoot?
fun.
They're a lot of fun.
That interview went all over the place, which is actually quite like their show.
I'm going to go binge listen to their show now.
Oh, me too.
No, I love the fact that they are so different, and they have a lot of issues between them that they're passionate about, and they can talk about whether or not they agree with each other, or the different points of view, and it'll be great to know how they get on when they see each other face to face.
And maybe this is not the right word to describe this, but the chaos that is their show is kind of reminiscent of ours a bit, right? It's
with more swearing.
Yeah, with had more swearing. Because we got to put a leash on Nancy, because if you don't, she'll just swear like a sailor the whole time. Thank you for joining us.
We have like a spray bottle that we like spray.
Bad Nancy. Bad Nancy. Thank you for joining us on the show today, guys. You can find us at leftatvalley.com. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on at LATV Podcast on Twitter. You can send us an email at leftatvalley@outlook.com. Give us a 5-star review. That would really help us and help others find the show. Coming up, we'll be doing an interview with Bernard Laborel. We'll talk about the covenant. And an interesting take on the historicity of the biblical historicity. Next week, we'll be talking to... Where is it? Thomas Westbrook of the Holy Kool-Aid channel on YouTube and his podcast, Here and Now. And on the 23rd, we'll be talking to Seth Andrews, the velvety voice of Seth Andrews. And... at the beginning of next month in July, we'll be talking to Scott Marshall about Love Explained. Like it wasn't explained. And, you guys don't know this, but on the 14th, who do we have? Professor Jerry Coyne is coming back.
Oh, nice. That's wonderful.
Yes, and we'll be talking about the will. Do we have free will or not?
Oh,
that is going to be such a fun conversation.
Yes, it is going to be. So
maybe he'll even work in a comment about fruit flies. One or two of them.
Why are you looking at me when you say fruit flies?
I don't think
that's a big thing now. That's part of what his academic interest was.
Oh, okay, yeah, of course.
Yeah, research.
As an evolutionary biologist, should be fun. And I'm also going to have a one-on-one conversation with Robert Stanley, our friend Robert Stanley. Just kind of a behind-the-scenes look.
You aren't inviting us?
No, it's just me and him.
I'm going to cry now, guys.
Does he know that I'm not going to be there and he's going to talk to you?
Yeah,
anyway?
he still agreed to talk to me even though you guys are not there. I know. We're just doing a chat between me and him because
because you can.
Because we can.
That's
we're
right.
just going to explore what is this between two podcasters in the U.S. and Canada? What's the difference? We're just going to explore a whole bunch of little things like that.
Great.
So that'll be interesting.
Cheering for our lives up here.
Yeah, that's kind of a big thing. All right, guys, thank you so much. Until next time.
Au revoir. Disgraceful that thousands of children are raped by priests, and since they're holy men of God, they get away scot-free. And the Pope does his very best to keep it on the hush. Don't wanna affect business, he loves money too much. We know that they love the kids, but how the fuck can we protect them while they planning to molest them? We teaching them to respect them.
Fuck that.
The system is broke down, working backwards, and the only action or tactic I plan to practice now is to attack them. The parties of God's hands are bloodstained, millions of murders by believers, and they're all in God's name. And let me take a sec, don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that many atheists are told to be quiet. You're not alone, speak your mind, time to let it be known. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, and non